I mean, I think the political whiplash to me here is most astounding. If Donald Trump found the cure to cancer, people at this table would be upset about how he did it. People on the political left would go crazy about how he did it. We got into this war for a strategic purpose, and now the president has gotten us out of the war, gotten an end to the war with a really good plan to do so, and a very clear win, of a big victory on nuclear weapons, and we're sitting around the table complaining about it.
Can you answer the question about nuclear enrichment?
Of course, the
results don't match the cost of war, and that is honestly going to be a political problem for him as we get closer to the midterms and we look beyond that. The
cost of war in this case was Iran not having a nuclear weapon, full stop.
The cost of war to people at home are American lives that were lost.
Yes, absolutely. And when you go to war, having done it myself several times,
I hear you.
Do. And there is, and that's an unfortunate, I don't want to gloss over that point.
You are trusting the Iranian regime that has not changed by simply saying...
I'm trusting Trump because the one thing he will never allow is for Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
Biggest problem
so for the next 2.5 years as president, they will not have a nuclear weapon.
I mean, hey guys, what is up and what is going on? It's your boy Marky Dan, the historian, coming to you with a video. We're going to be reacting to an Abby Phillips panel where, you know, I mean, if you watch Abby Phillips, it's pretty much the same old, same old. You have on one side left-leaning commentators who seem to be a lot more in touch with reality, at least during the Donald Trump administration. And then you just have absolute MAGA cocksucks who, no matter what Donald Trump does or says, they will defend him to the death. You'll swear to God that Donald Trump is like Jesus Christ come again to these people. And you're just going to hear some of the most like just ridiculous defenses for this memorandum of understanding. So let's react to this video and then I'll give you my thoughts at the end.
Tonight, the Trump administration's PR crisis on the Iran agreement is intensifying. This week, as aspects of the deal leaked, J.D. Vance, the vice president, made the rounds on TV to blame Gulf allies for the botched rollout and downplaying concerns by accusing critics of spreading misinformation.
What really bothers me and frustrates me and is unexpected when the American media literally picks up talking points and propaganda from the RAGC that has no support in the text of the agreement that we've actually negotiated and no basis in reality.
So don't take my word for it because we've been covering this all week. But here's Eric Erickson today. When I pointed out things in this deal the other day, several administration defenders insisted that those things would never be in the deal. Now they're in the deal, and the same people insist it's a great deal. Stephen, why did they spend days denying that there would be a $300 billion fund, denying that there would be sanctions relief? And those things are in the deal.
Well, I don't have a good explanation for that. I know that Trump wanted to get this over with. I do think there was I know we're going to talk about this a little later. I think he was concerned about the impact this is having on the U.S. economy, and he wants to get it turned around as quickly as possible. So he wanted to bring this to an end with the provision, as I understand it, I haven't read all that, but the most important provision of this is they will not gain a nuclear arsenal. And that seems to me to be a pretty important objective.
But there are no mechanisms stated here in terms of intrusive inspections, 24/7 inspections. I mean, I assume that that's something that will come and will be discussed during the 60-day period. But frankly, I mean, I think that what it looks like to me is that the Iranians have, they did a flanking operation. They found the soft underbelly of the U.S. military. They controlled the Straits of Hormuz, even though they're a weaker power. And President Trump was simply unwilling, not incapable, but unwilling to spend more resources, possibly American lives, more money.
You think he should have?
I think that having gone down that road of starting a war to achieve the three goals that he stated, I mean, my reading, it was quite consistent from the beginning. He said missiles, it was enrichment, missiles, and proxies. And that is something, by the way, I mean, I did bring the text of those three things were exactly the three items that President Trump stated in the executive order he made when he came back in office and reinstated maximum, the maximum pressure. So he's been focused on that. So I think that, yes, I mean, I think they were close to like the 20-yard line. And to achieve those war aims, I think that he could have gone further. And
double down, basically.
Yeah, he could have gone further, but he decided not to.
So, you know, in addition to denying some of the monetary components of this deal, there was a lot of sort of hemming and hawing about what the deal was going to say about the enriched uranium. And I just want to play, again, there's a lot of before the deal and after the deal. Here is what they used to say about, you know, the nuclear material and enriched uranium being a red line, and what President Trump is saying today.
You want the enriched uranium before you can end this.
We want no enrichment, but we also want the enriched uranium.
One of your red lines is they have to renounce having their nuclear ambition. Do we have to get back the highly enriched uranium? Is that a red line for a deal?
Yes.
Right.
Do you really feel in your heart of hearts that you can stop Iran from enriching uranium and never build a bomb?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
They're going to stop. And they told me, the Iranians told me, and I deal with them, and they said that we're going to get the dust.
We've been pretty tough in that. You know, it is a little hard, though, when you say that somebody wants it, other people have it, other adjoining states have it, and you're not letting them have it for purposes of electricity and things like that. It's always a little tough. You have to use a little common sense.
Okay, so just so you're aware of what's actually in this MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, they're not going to get the dust. They are going to dilute the dust. That's what it says. Now, you can give them credit for getting Iran to sign on to something that says, here's what we're going to do with the nuclear material that you have already, but it doesn't say you're going to let us in to retrieve it and take it out of the country. And in fact, on the question of just are they able to enrich, remember he told Caitlin, we want no enrichment. The deal says we'll talk about enrichment, and then he said there in that quote, maybe they might need to enrich for other purposes. That is, I think, something that for many conservatives has been their red line on Iran.
Can I just make a comment about this enrichment? I was following very closely the 2015. There were the JCPOA made one, I think, concession which they shouldn't have done to the Iranians, which was that they included in the language the idea, the demand by the Iranians that we have a right to enrichment on Iranian soil.
Right.
Actually, under NPT, the Non-Proliferation Treaty, no country has a right to enrichment. The NPT gives countries a right to nuclear material, which they can use for civilian purposes, but it doesn't give anyone a right.
So did you read this the way I did, which is to say that we are conceding, as the United States, that we're going to have a conversation about that.
That's
we're not
exactly
saying no enrichment. We're saying, oh, we can talk about it, and maybe you can enrich up until this level. Again, that's exactly right, that this is something that was, for a long time, a red line. And that is, to me, one of the biggest concessions for Iran, because they believe they have a right to enrich. And we're basically saying, you might.
I mean, I think the political whiplash, to me, here is most astounding. If Donald Trump found the cure to cancer, people at this table would be upset about how he did it. People on the political left would go crazy about how he did it. We got into this war for a strategic purpose, and now the president has gotten us out of the war, gotten an end to the war, with a really good plan to do so, and a very clear win, of a big victory on nuclear weapons, and we're sitting around the table complaining about it.
Can you answer the question about
and
nuclear
so I think,
enrichment?
of course, the details of this are going to come out. The president has a skeleton of a plan put together. There's a framework that's been put together via these 14 points. And I do think that more of the details are going to come out, more of the KPIs are going to come out as we continue to negotiate and go through this. But man, it's whiplash up here, because when we were in the war, it was, oh my God, five-alarm fire, Trump got us into this war. Now he's getting us out, and beautifully so, and you're still complaining.
The results don't match the cost of war, and that is honestly going to be a political problem for him as we get closer to the midterms and we look beyond that.
The cost of war in this case was Iran not having a nuclear weapon, full stop.
The cost of war to people at home are American lives that were lost.
Yes, absolutely. And when you go to war, having done it myself several times,
I hear you.
do. And there is, and that's an unfortunate, I don't want to gloss over that point. That is an unfortunate aspect of combat and going to war against our nation's enemies.
It doesn't feel like the president understands the gravity of that.
I think wait a second. I think as the commander-in-chief of the United States, the president absolutely understands. And I think if you want to compare when this president goes to Dover Air Force Base and did the dignified transfers of those bodies, he wasn't checking his watch like Joe Biden was and falling asleep. So when you talk about, let me finish. When you talk about the gravity of the issue with the president, of the commander in chief, understanding the gravity of American lives lost, that's
I want to get back on topic because I heard and I appreciate the regurgitation of the talking points, but we were talking about nuclear enrichment and them being closer to a nuclear weapon and possessing that uranium and that we're talking about in making these nuclear weapons. And you brought up an amazing point, which, frankly speaking, I'm too far away from to understand. So you taught me something today. What I do understand about the JCPOA, which you said was a different time, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. October 7th did change the framework of the Middle East. However, there were provisions in place. There were checkpoints in place to make sure that enrichment was maintained at a certain level, that they were backing away from that. And all we're simply saying is that that's not in place today.
It will be.
Listen, you are trusting the Iranian regime that has not changed by simply saying...
I'm trusting Trump because the one thing he will never allow is for Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
Biggest problem
so for the next 2.5 years as president, they will not have a nuclear weapon.
I mean, we're not having... This is Israel, the United States, the Middle East, which you just said, because we actually agree on something, that Iran does not need to have a nuclear weapon. It's a worldwide problem. However, we actually had, and I'm going to just steal from Trey Gowdy, we actually had maximum pressure. We had sanctions on them. Today, they're able to go back and sell oil. They're charging money that we're paying for ships to come through the Straits of Hormuz. Like, it's not only the pain on the American people, which we'll get to, but talking points do a disservice to the fact that we are not meeting the objectives that Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio has been quiet, have told the American public.
All right, we have to leave it there. Keon, thank you, as always, very much for teaching us all a little bit something tonight. Next for us, the president delivers a new defense for the agreement. To avoid another depression, he says, another special guest is going to be with us at the table. We'll be right back.
So, like I said at the start, just complete MAGA cocksuckery. I mean, just no coherent defenses. Firstly, to the raccoon in the suit. I don't even know that guy's name. I just call him raccoon in the suit. Like cat in the hat, kind of. But he's a raccoon in the suit, like literally. He starts off by saying, oh, the leftists were mad. We were in the war. Now they're mad. We're getting out of the war. Listen here, you fucking raccoon in the suit. We are mad in the first place you got us in the war. Now that we're in the war, okay, listen, nobody wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Nobody wants Iran to be able to fund terror proxies which have killed American citizens and soldiers over the years. But once you're in the war, commit to achieving those goals. And we have not achieved those goals. And then he says, if Donald Trump created a cure for cancer, leftists would be mad about it. Shut the absolute fuck up, dude. Like, nothing about this deal is like miraculous or, oh my God, it's amazing. This is a saving grace. Nothing about this war was amazing or a saving grace. Raccoon in the suit continues. What did he say? He said, oh, well, Donald Trump has so much respect for the troops, unlike Joe Biden. That's their favorite thing. Joe Biden was falling asleep and checking his watch at a dignified transfer. No, firstly, we have video of Donald Trump falling asleep at the 9/11 memorial. And Donald Trump was the guy who wore a MAGA cap to a dignified transfer. So it's like, what are we talking about? Like, just act like... the worst cocksuckery you will ever see. They wash Donald Trump's balls with their mouths every chance they get. And then he says, oh, the cost of this war is the fact Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. Firstly, there's no strenuous inspection process like there was laid out in the JCPOA. In this, it's just a paragraph of Iran basically committing to never getting a nuclear weapon and never enrich, or rather not never enriching uranium, but committing to downblending their enriched uranium under the supervision of the IAEA. But there's no actual like detailed process for how the IAEA, which is the UN's nuclear watchdog agency, there's no detailed verification process that Iran is actually committing to, like how there was in the JCPOA. This memorandum of understanding, it's only about a page and a half long. The JCPOA was an agreement that was worked on for 2 years and was 140 to, I believe, 150 pages long, that had all types of processes up the gazoo to make sure Iran was not enriching above the agreed upon cap of 3.6%, which is what you need for civilian nuclear energy use. And then another part of this is the fact that this is just an absolute defeat, because none of our strategic goals at the beginning of this war were achieved. None of them. We didn't destroy Iran's ballistic missile system. According to intelligence reports, they still have about 70% of their ballistic missile stockpile, as well as their missile launchers. We have not destroyed the Iranian Navy, or else we would have been able to have ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz months ago. We have not ousted the regime. It's still the same regime. Okay, we killed Khomeini and got a younger Khomeini, a younger and more radical Khomeini, who now probably hates the United States 100 times more because they killed his father and I believe his wife and a few of his children in that strike that killed the original, or the last Ayatollah, the last supreme leader. So what did we gain? Like, from this agreement, Iran, sanctions on Iran's oil industry is done. From this agreement, $24 billion in frozen assets are going to be released to the Iranian regime. And then at the end of the 60 days, if they agree to some type of nuclear deal, Iran is going to get $300 billion in reparations to rebuild their country after all the shit the United States and Israel bombed and destroyed, and all the people they killed. You compare this to the Obama deal. Obama released $1.7 billion in Iranian assets. Okay, there was a botched weapons deal between us and Iran back in the 70s, where Iran paid us $400 billion for some jets and some tanks and some frigates and whatnot. And because of the Iranian Revolution, the United States government chose not to deliver on that promise. So Obama gave them back their $400 million that they put down, that principal, and then he gave them back another $1.3 billion in interest from that money sitting in an overseas trust fund. Iran, just like before we even get to the nuclear deal, Iran is going to net $40 billion plus in U.S. currency. Okay, there's reports out there. The UAE is releasing $12 billion. And then you obviously have the $24 billion that's going to be released from, I guess, bank accounts that are that have U.S. financial system oversight. And then from the unfreezing of the sanctions on their oil industry, they're going to net $8 billion just in the first 60 days. And what did the United States of America gain? We gained 13 to 15 dead service members. Wage gains wiped out by the increase in gas prices. Inflation. And just because the Strait of Hormuz, which, by the way, just because they're saying they're committing to the Strait of Hormuz being open, that doesn't mean the Strait of Hormuz is open. The Strait of Hormuz is not going to be opened until the insurance companies that insure those shipping tankers, until they decide to bring down the price of premiums for those ships. The premiums, because of this war, exploded by 900%, which is just financially like unsustainable for any company throughout the world to pay. And then on top of the fact, the captains of these ships, you have to ensure to them that Iran is not going to just bomb them, or that the war is not going to go back on, because on top of what else is included in this deal is a provision that includes Israel has to stop striking Lebanon. Now, there's reports coming out today that Hezbollah and Israel have reached some type of ceasefire agreement, but that's not going to last. Israel is occupying their country. Lebanon, or excuse me, rather Hezbollah is a guerrilla resistance force that was created in the 80s, specifically after Israel invaded and occupied southern Lebanon. And they fought for decades, sustaining thousands of dead and misery beyond misery to kick Israel out. So I don't believe that this just ends. And then we have reports today, Israel killed 3 people in Lebanon. So I don't have too much hope that we're ever going to get to a deal. But hey, if you listen to that guy, I don't even know his name, the white dude, I trust Donald Trump. Donald Trump's never going to allow them to get a nuclear weapon. Just absolute cocksuckery. Like, I have no words. But anyways, let me know what y'all think in the comments. Is this a good deal? Is Donald Trump getting a better deal than the JCPOA? And do you think that the economic unsustainability of this war is now over? We're going to see what happens. Let me know what y'all think in the comments.